in attempting to articulate and out-narrate secular humanism and its political ally, political liberalism. These three streams on the theological terrain, the theological orthodoxy of the Southern Baptist Conference movement, the idea that there's an age of crisis and a need for new theology and a theological retrieval and radical orthodoxy, and the very idea that theology and politics must be wed together in a reformed resurgence that now goes by popular titles such as the Seven Mountains Mandate, Patrick Deneen's The Death of Liberalism, and other titles that proliferate around Christian nationalism, remind us that this isn't just a singular stream that we're dissenting from. It is multiple, it is varied, and it crosses all terrains. We asked Bill last night to speak of us of dissent, and he responded. And he responded this morning as we walked in, as I thought about this, with these words. One thing I've learned, and I've never said this out loud on recording, is that you can work for institutions as long as you don't trust them. If you trust them, meaning that you suppose that they will act in ways that are always humane, you will certainly be disappointed. But if you know that they're going at points and they're going to do certain things, even though they may say how humane and how much they try to be humane, you have to remember they are always an institution and it can take a turn. Probably not as radically as took place with the SBC, but it will happen sooner or later. And you just have to be ready for that. I've seen people crushed because they thought institutions would act in ways that they didn't act. And I think it's better to be prepared to expect where they're going to go on those issues. Bill reminds us of the contours of dissent and not placing our faith in the singular expression of one institution for all place and all time. Dissent isn't something that we pick up and put down like we take on and off a coat. Dissent is a practice and is renewed each and every day. And in this wake of understanding Bill's lesson on dissent, he also provides us with a guide for our conversations today. Inspired by Ralph Waldo Emerson's famed 1838 Divinity School address, at the founding of this Wake Forest University School of Divinity, Bill provided us with this lesson. Sooner or later, all good instruction involves provocation, pressing us beyond our certainty and ourselves, demanding more than we ever dreamed possible. What is pressing us beyond our certainty, ourselves, demanding more than we ever dreamed possible in this moment, like now? Bill's thesis reminds us that we confront an open question. And as Gadamer reminds us, to ask a question means to bring into the open. And the openness of what is in question consists of the fact that the answer is not set. Let us continue our conversations today in the openness of this question. And let us always be reminded that dissent is a practice that calls us each and every day. We could not begin this conversation none other than one who has embodied dissent in all that she has done. who begin today with Dr. Molly Marshall, who's celebrating her final year as president at United Theological Seminary of the Twin Cities. Molly will start our conversation, and then she will be joined by Linda Bridges and by Bill Leonard on the stage for a broader conversation.
Now, I want to tell a bit of a story, but it is a shared story, because many of you accompanied me in this story at the Mother Seminary. And so, please let's not make this just mine alone. Many of you accompanied, supported, dissented too. Now, my practice of dissent began long before Southern. I questioned why boys were invited to preach at student night at Christmas. I insisted on joining the ministerial society at Oklahoma Baptist University because I had a call to ministry too. And so they had to take down the "No Girls Allowed" sign. After college, I served a church in Texas doing youth and community ministry in the shadow of Southwestern Seminary, where the women's dorm, Bernard Hall, was called the barnyard. And I questioned why the misogyny, that insulting language, ensured I would look elsewhere for seminary. Go east, young woman. Shortly after I arrived in Louisville, in the spring of 1973, I learned that Billy Graham was holding a town hall in the chapel. And since students had the opportunity to ask questions, I did, boldly. I asked his views on the ordination of women, and he declined to answer, saying, "This wasn't the place to discuss this." And I talked back. I said, "If not here, where?" And some cheered and some booed, and I was branded as a feminist before I fully knew that I was. I had gone to seminary eager to engage that very question, as well as many others. After I completed my MDiv, I began to apply for positions. I had one interview at Campbellsville College in Kentucky. The position would involve living in the women's dorm, working in the Dean of Students' office, occasional teaching, and some student personnel work. My interview with the dean of the school began with his interrogation. "You're not one of those women who wants to preach, are you?" I said, "I don't know, but this would not be the place to find out." So I did not take a job there. Subsequently, I was called to a church in Little Rock, where they wanted to name me director of youth and single adults. And I said, "Why not associate pastor?" Well, that sounded too pastoral. I carried the title minister of youth and single adults. While there, I discerned it will have to get better at the seminaries before it gets better for the churches. At a conference on women in church-related vocations, 1978, you remember that gathering in Nashville, I asked Dr. Honeycutt, then dean of the School of Theology, when a woman would be hired in his school. His response, "When they get marketable." I took that to heart. So back to Southern I went. Although I'd been accepted in other PhD programs, my calculus was the first woman hired in the School of Theology would bear their fingerprints. After I finished my PhD in the summer of 1983, I applied to 120 colleges and seminaries for a teaching position. And nobody wanted me. The usual answer was, we need someone with more experience, more ministry experience. Then they would hire a young man with less experience and inferior grades. I figured it had to be something about the skirt. So I became a pastor by God's great mercy of the Jordan Baptist Church in Eagle Station, Kentucky. Their language and mine was that I would help them out until they could call a pastor. Well, it worked, and they called me as their pastor. When a new associational missionary was appointed, I welcomed him by saying, "We are glad to have you in our association," and squeezed his hand a little too hard, thus laying claim and signaling, "Don't mess with me. I was here first." Astonishingly, after graduating in December of 1983, under Roy Honeycutt's leadership, I was added to the Department of Theology at Southern in January of 1984. Now, I stepped into a stream of dissent. Think about Henley Barnett's views against segregation. Think about Diana Richmond Garland's understanding that social work values are compatible with the gospel. Think about Andy Lester's understanding of the women's movement as a movement of the Spirit. Think about Dale Moody and Eric Rust, who believe science and Bible are not incompatible. Think about Roy Honeycutt convening the first of the Women in Ministry conversations on the campus in '75. Think about Bill Leonard, who enthusiastically participated in women's ordinations and wrote about it. Good News at Wolf Creek. Think about Linda McKinnish Bridges, who later had the courage to wipe the dust from her feet when Southern would no longer receive her considerable gifts. Yes, I stepped into a stream of dissent. You recall things had been heating up at Southern in Baptist life since 1979, and I became the symbol of all that was wrong with Southern. That I had served as a pastor meant that I did not believe in the inerrancy of Scripture. They got that right. For 11 years, I tried to prove that I was an asset to the school. While my lectures were taped, writings taken out of context, with a few male students challenging my theological perspective in grandstanding fashion. Most of their ilk simply chose not to take my classes, which was fine with me. Let Frank deal with it. I remember one encounter with a young man in a formation for ministry class. I was still pastoring Jordan at the time, which troubled him deeply. He said, "I just have 2 questions for you. How big is your church? And what problem does your husband have with you being a pastor?" I was tempted to cut him off at the knees, which he deserved. But the good influence of Andy Lester, of blessed memory, prompted me to ask, "Why do you want to know?" Later, debriefing this with Andy, he remarked, "It was about power, you know. If you can be a pastor too, he's not more powerful than you," which eroded his whole world view. Now, my dissent was wrapped up in more than contrarian resistance. Yes, I had grown up between brothers and sharpened my elbows along the way, but this was about theology. Theology was at stake in my dissent. If God is only described and addressed as male, do women fully bear the image of God? Why has Scripture been translated and interpreted to characterize women as prone to temptation, subordinate, wicked, in need of male headship? What if the patriarchal system of the Bible is a result of sin rather than God's intent? Why has the church not celebrated the strong leadership of biblical women? Deborah, Ruth, Esther, Mary, Mary Magdalene, Dorcas, Priscilla, Phoebe, etc. On occasion, they get a Sunday school class named after them. Small reward. Does the Spirit give gifts according to gender, or as the Spirit determines? I never read in 1 Corinthians. And to the women, we're given helps, kitchen, children. Or to the men, we're given prophecy, leadership. No. The Spirit gives gifts as the Spirit determines. Or another question. Who is truly the head of the church? The pastor or Christ?
Yes.
There was a whole lot of conversation, as you recall, about headship. Why is biblical authority tied to male authority? Another of my questions. Why have Baptists violated core tenets such as liberty of conscience, the priesthood of all believers, and soul freedom when it comes to women? Why would a professor who gave me high marks on my doctoral comprehensives tell me not to share my grade with fellow students who were failing? I loved Dale Moody, but that was over the line. I'll tell whom I want, sir. Why not introduce feminist theology into the Southern curriculum, which I did a couple of years before departing? Well, these and many other questions kept nudging me toward dissent. And you know what happened. When R. Albert Mohler was named president, some have suggested that it was contingent on his promise to get rid of that troublesome woman. And he did, ruthlessly. I'm sorry we couldn't see the part of the clip of Battle for the Minds in which the foreground on my desk has two molars on it. One is from a dental supply store that Don Pulaski sent me for when the new administration grinds on you. He sent me four. And then Dan Stiver gave me, his daughter Carrie gave me a two-faced wooden molar with a hole in the head. These are my cherished. When asked about the abstract of principles, I did a Wittenberg-like attempt. I posted my responses to each of the abstract of principles all over campus. And they were taken down promptly, of course. Moving on from Southern, set me free to enter the larger church. The SBC system can be all-absorbing, and it was good for me to learn the ways of mainline and progressive traditions where dissent is more welcome. My life's work in theological education has been my calling and joy for over 40 years, for which I'm grateful. And yes, God preserved my vocation. Thanks a troublesome woman.
Thanks be to God.
All right, what's the format, friends?
It's up to you.
Well,
We'll talk about.
You all stop.
Well, I have stories to tell.
Don't get me wrong.
So am I on? Am I on? What a delight. What an emotional space of remembrances. And I think you probably are with us in all of that, because I wanted to say an advance warning to the documentary. It will trigger things. So, it brings back a lot of things that are not so pleasant. That 1984 didn't show a picture of me just bawling like an old lady in the middle of all of that, and y'all were probably too. But let me just start off by saying we had some fun too. So Molly, as prone as she is to Dissent and looking into unexplored territory and adventure, said to me one day, and she said to me a lot of things a lot of days, but she said, let's go see the Wayne Ward Marble Memorial Urinal in the only male bathroom, the only bathroom that was on the east wing of Norton. I said, Mom, we can't do that. Because Mommy's always brazen, and I'm always coming back and saying, well, should we do that? I don't think we should do that. So Mom said, yes, we've got to go see it. Just think, they have all seen it, they meaning the men, but we have not seen the Wayne Ward Marble Memorial Urinal in Norton. And I'm thinking,
The holy urinal.
I don't know if we need to do this or not, but I'm going to go do it because I've not seen it, I've heard about it, I'm going to go see it. So I am teaching adjunctively, I've got an office on the side there, and so I am also in the department with a man by the name of Gerald Borchert. He's on my committee. So we walk in, creeping into the bathroom, and there is Gerald Borchert button up in his pants. He just come out of the stall. And now how do we explain that Molly and I are creeping into the bathroom to see the Wayne? Well, isn't that a beautiful urinal? Dr. Borchert. We just on our way out of the bathroom. So in all of that turmoil and sadness and frustration of all those years, there was a lot of laughter and a lot of mischievousness, and I am thankful for that too. And I've got stories about Bill, but I'll let him tell those. I'll get back to you shortly.
Bill, it meant a great deal to me and women students when you began to be enthusiastically involved in women's ordinations. And I was referring to Cindy Harp Johnson, and then Bill wrote an article about the beauty of that ordination, which was a wonderful witness and was an expression of dissent itself. A favorite memory involves my final Garrett Fellow, Jeffrey Vickery, blessed pastor in Cullowhee. The trustees were on campus, and I didn't want to run into them on the sidewalk, and so we decided we would go across the roof of Norton Hall. You know, they have those inside gutters, so Jeffrey carries my books, and I in my skirt. We trip across the roof there over to Norton 208, where the theology class waited, as the trustees and others are streaming down the sidewalk. When we got to the window, they're not sure they're going to let me in. The students struck a bargain. If you take this off of the upcoming test, we'll let you in the class. So I was pontificating, and Jeffrey in good form, faithful to help me get to class and do it well. I want to call out one other person and then I'll hush. I want to call out Janet Puckett Wade's father, Gene, who was featured so prominently in the Battle for the Mines. I worked with Gene along the way when he was the editor of the Maryland Baptist, and he was a hero of Baptist probity and theological thinking, and I appreciated very much his encouragement along the way and his very articulate perception of what actually was going on.
The opportunity to study, I don't know if you can fully grasp it, but the opportunity to be able to go to Southern Seminary and sit in class and talk theology, or sit in class and conjugate Greek verbs, it was a delight. It was such a delight to be able to talk that stuff, you know? To be able, the things that I thought about but didn't have anyone to really talk about it in those little mountain churches, and to be able to come to Southern, the motherlode. It was a thrill, and it was a thrill to find like-minded women because we were creating new charts and new paths. But I remember going to church with Pastor Molly up there in Ohio. Jordan.
Eagle Station, Kentucky.
And watching her put on her waders for the first time because she was baptizing somebody. And I thought, this is the most wonderful thing I've ever seen. A woman about to baptize somebody. Now I look at you all and with such maybe motherly kind of delight, see you pastoring and leading worship. And it's such a joy in my own heart to see that you have moved into those places. But she was the first one I'd ever seen.
Well, here's the rest of the story.
I know.
Those waiters belonged to Bob Ferguson, who was about 6'5", and Jay fell out. And as we went down into the baptistry at the Gent Baptist Church, my feet slipped, and we both went under. And so when it came time to count baptisms for the association,
But then came the moment for children's sermon. And I saw those little girls and a few little boys you had, and they looked at her with so much love and admiration. And later those little girls did not believe that a man could be a pastor. They said, how can a man be a pastor? I got to see that. We talked a lot, you know, in the corners and wine and other words to use in that kind of category, bitched about everything, right? Because it was so unequal and not fair. But there were some places of true revelation when I saw those little girls look up at Molly and say, you know, it will be a different world, Emily. It will be different. It will be different. And it has become different. And I'm thankful. I'm thankful, except, and I'm doing fine. I'm doing just fine. You know, through the years, just rocking and rolling with all of that, until just recently. And then I just really lost it. And for those of you who follow the Facebook and the Substack, you see how I lost it. I did. I've tried to maintain composure. That's just the kind of way I've tried to do. But when Al, who was my classmate, and sat beside me in colloquium, I want to say copied my paper, but that's really arrogant. That's for sure. He looked over at me a lot, so I'm not sure why. But, and I have gone to see him, so I have gone to speak to him personally, and he's going to be probably watching this in a few days. But when he took a position with Doug Wilson, thought, this is really clear. If I have been not on the clarity, if I've not been clear about this and being willing to, well, maybe, whatever, it's gonna change, it's gonna be better, Al's a good person, blah, 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 blah. If I had not seen that, I would not have gone over the edge. But I saw my classmate say to Wilson it was okay for women not to vote and the 19th Amendment to be abolished, and was sitting with those boys in that moment of time. And I thought, no more little nice girl. And I've tried to dissent in positive ways, help start a new seminary. We'll talk a little bit about that in the next hour. In 1989, we've been positive, we've looked forward, we looked to the future. We've done things that we could say, we're not looking back. But that one, Molly, that one just threw me over the edge. And I said to Al Miller, to myself, no more, dude. No more.
Wow. I want to start by, I have 2 or 3 stories, but I want to start by one. Molly reminded me, I was the interim pastor at Crescent Hill Church, and a guy surrendered his life to trust in Christ and accept Christ, and he came forward, and his name was Bob, and I was going to baptize him. And so I didn't realize until I got into the baptistry that Bob was over 6 feet tall and weighed about 200 pounds. And I looked out into the audience and saw Candace Crew Leonard. And I knew it was over. But down he went with the name of God spoken over him. And down I went too. I got him back up, and the congregation at Crescent Hill broke into spontaneous applause. They thought we were both going on. You brought that back. The second thing is when Molly began as president of Central Baptist Seminary and American Baptist churches in the USA, she asked me to come out and speak at her installation. And the first thing I said when I got up is, for Baptists, all you have to do is say, Molly. And everybody knows who. She's like Shez. And the next day when she met with the Board of Trustees, if I'm telling the truth, they took her doctoral regalia and put a cutout of Cher and put it at the head of the place. So it's my fault. The other thing to say, and this is a word to Dean Walker. Everybody in this room is a dissenter. Everybody in this room and has been a dissenter for the last 40 plus years, if not before. Molly was a dissenter in utero. Not many people do. But every one of you, you made your voices heard in all sorts of different ways. And we have to celebrate that. Even if I cry about it. That's a powerful thing to me. The fourth thing to say is, and Molly reminded me of this again, Ann Davis, the dean of the social work school, and I were invited to go to the Wolf Creek Baptist Church, where Cindy Hart Johnson was a member and was to be ordained. And Ann preached and I preached. And then we had the laying on of hands, and we all laid hands on them kneeling, sitting in a chair. And at the very end, a woman that I think was named Miss Effie or Miss Essie came from the back of the church, and she couldn't walk well. She was probably as old as I am. and so she reached she went down touching the tops of the pews, and she got down to Cindy, and she reached over. She didn't lay her hands on her head or anything. She reached over and pulled Cindy into her considerable bosom. And we were all just deeply moved. And I think of that so many times. When I get discouraged about the church. And she said to me, yes, and she said to where we could all hear, honey, I don't know where God will take you, but wherever it is, I'm with you. And there wasn't a dry eye in the place. This little country church that blessed her, and the saints of that church pulled her close. And I've always thought of that, which brings me to one other thing. And that is, well, I'll just say it like this. The Christian century kept me sane during the 1980s because they let me go as a press representative, which means I got into the Southern Baptist press room, which had great food. and after, the thing I had to do was just send in an article. And after the 1984 thing, when they had that resolution about women can't preach, wasn't it 84? Yeah. And we all went. So I wrote an article for the Christian Century, and this, I'm serious, it kept me sane. I wrote an article called Forgiving Eve, and someone on the film mentioned that 1 Timothy text about women can't speak in church, for Eve, this is the Eve was in the transgression. And so they used that. And so in that article I said, if women are too cursed to be called, they're too cursed to be saved. And all these people who talk about doctrine and talk about wanting to be true to the Bible, when they took that verse and applied it to women, they canceled out Jesus Christ's death on the cross. Because the atonement didn't apply to women about this case. And if there's this case, then what's left? And reminded all of us of Paul's words, there is therefore now no condemnation to those who are in Christ Jesus. And they don't get it. Al Mohler doesn't get it. That he's reading the Bible, I'll say it what I said last time, but he's missing the gospel. And the power of that realization to me, and then these things, and then working with both of these people. And last year we told the story about Brother McKinnish shaking the dust off his feet in front of Norton Hall. And I told you all this. I happened to come out at the same time. People in my church would say, the Lord Jesus knew you needed to go out.
But you thought we were cursing the seminary.
Yes, I did. And I said, oh my Lord, Brother Harold has put a curse on us. So I said that to myself. And I was right. Yes, and I'll just say this, that Linda has written a wonderful book about her father, the mountain preacher, who had a semi-conversion experience, meaning he was already saved, but he had to get resaved. About her decision to go to seminary and then be ordained and preach the gospel. And it's a wonderful, wonderful book, and I recommend it all to all of you. So the theological confusion, and I'll add one other thing, and that is what we know. We said this last year. What we know now, and it came out in I think Gene Puckett made a reference to that. I can't remember that we were the avant-garde of what the whole country is experiencing right now.
Yes.
And there was a plan, I believe, from the very beginning, to build a base, an electoral base, among evangelicals, quote unquote, small e, and develop a new political subgroup that would help support what's happening now. And the Southern Baptist Convention was the test case, and it worked. And the whole country is now experiencing not only the political ramifications, but as both these women have referenced, they're also experiencing a kind of religious establishmentarianism with one singular kind of Christianity as the established. And that was the promise, that was the contract they made with that crowd on the film. And now we all know it.
So we do know this story, as he has just alluded to. We know how this story works. Let me hasten to say, if, for example, Tisa Lewis had joined us, Tisa Lewis, yes, we remember Tisa, and Bill Rogers, if he could have been here, he's not able to be here, we'll speak about him shortly. But they and Susan Shaw, who wrote that article, Is This Camelot? Let me quickly say that there was not a Camelot at Southern Seminary before the fall. There were some places, and some of you who are nodding your head may have acknowledged and been a part of that fact that there was not a Camelot at Southern Seminary. Molly got in as an MDiv student, and what year was it? What, 73, because she talked her way in. Can you believe that? They were not allowing women to come into the Master of Divinity program. And somehow, she was just telling me on the phone the other day, she talked her way into becoming enrolled in the Master of Divinity. When I came along a couple of years later, Willis Bennett said to me, women cannot study theology. I wish I'd known you then, and I just called you in and said, get him. And so he said, you'll have to do MRE. So I took the Master of Religious Education, then went off with the Foreign Mission Board and worked in Taipei, Taiwan, thanks to Charlie Wilson's influence. And then came back and surrendered the MRE because I'd taken all my electives with David Garland in Greek because I loved reading and studying the scriptures in Greek. And then came back, surrendered the MRE, took the MDiv, and then did a PhD. But one of my professors, among Borchard, whom I met in it wasn't Wayne Ward Memorial Urinal, it was the Wayne Oates Memorial Urinal that we experienced there. But I was in class with all men in New Testament. I was in New Testament interpretation. Alan Culpepper was my doctor advisor. And so I would go at 8 o'clock with Harold Songer in a little classroom at the top of the stairs. And we would study the Mishnah. And there would be 7 other New Testament boys
that would be studying the Mishnah with me. And so when we got to the tractate on menstruation, Harold Songbird just went ballistic. And then we got to the tractate on ejaculation, and then he just said, I cannot teach this class. And he said to me pointedly, if you were not in here, I could get some really good teaching done. Well, if I had the stature of Molly, I'd just say, well, hell with you, I'm out of here, right? Or just we kind of backtrack, talk back to it. But I thought, well, maybe I've taken a man's place, I just really should go home and go back to the mountains, and I'm not really trained. I'm a new imposter syndrome, And so Harold really made me feel bad that I'd taken a man's spot there in the classroom. So he became my nemesis. Didn't like him very much. I don't think he liked me very much. Except when he learned that Willis Bennett had said, Linda, you're going to have to leave here. We'd like to have you teach New Testament, but things are going to get bad, but you just stay here teaching adjunctively, and then we'll hire you when this is over. I believed him. In the meantime, Tilton had taken the position as associate pastor in Richmond, Virginia. And I said, I'm not going. I'm going to be buried in Cave Hill Cemetery. I just know I am. I'm going to stay here at the Mother Lode and teach New Testament and Greek for my rest of my years. Because it had been such a wonderful place to be, to study and to learn. Harold Songbird said, come into my office. This is back before I was to graduate and decide what to do next. He slammed the door shut. I thought, I'm in trouble or I'm going to be assaulted one. I'm not sure what's going to happen here, but I'm going to stay alert. And Harold said, sit down. I sat down. He said, I need to tell you something. He said, no one else is telling you this, but this place is going to blow, and you need to get the hell out of here. And I closed the door after we talked. And I didn't really know exactly how to process that because Roy Honeycutt and others had said, just bide your time. Meanwhile, Randall over there in the Southeastern was saying, no, I'm out of here. Right? For those of you from the Southeastern, that dissenter had dissented early and said, I will not, and it was over the role of women at Southeastern. I will not stand this any longer. So I decided that with Harold's admonition, that I would go to Richmond, join my husband, take the little 12-month-old baby, and make our life in Richmond, and then the rest is the history. The rest is the story, as many of you know. But I think about that. No, it wasn't Camelot, but there were some places that were just real and shimmering with the glory of God. And I thank you for your presence in my life. I thank you for your presence this weekend. So at this moment when it seems dark and dusty out there, we know that we have seen this movie before. We know how this thing ends, and we know what we have to do. Whether it ends the way we want it to end or not, but we know we have to say something now, and we have to dissent. I'm going to turn it back to Molly. And Molly, I think if my timing is right, then we're just about to bring it home. Right, Corey?
Well, bringing it home may not be what I'm going to say, but Bill, you reminded me of a adventure I had in the press section at the Southern Baptist Convention the second time Adrian Rogers was elected. And I got a press pass because I was the editor of the Women in Ministry Folio, the magazine. Nancy Hastings and Heston was with me, and I don't know how she got press credentials. But she and I found little pig snouts. And we sat on the front row in front of Adrian Rogers while we gave his post-election speech. It was a lovely moment.
And you lived to tell about it.
Where are the pictures?
I'm going to add one quick quick story just to give you, that's the nurturing that went on amid all of the Harold Saunders stuff. But on 9/11, Nancy Sehested and Linda Weaver Williams, who were some of the first ordinands that I taught, were invited here to lead our 11 o'clock chapel service. And we all got into chapel just after the word got out. They had a plan, and they dropped that plan on the spot and developed a wonderful prayer time there. And before that service was over, the chapel was standing room only because undergraduates, many of whom at Wake Forest are from, we say, up east, just heard there was a chapel service going on, and they showed up. And those two women were absolutely amazing, and it had just happened. And by the way, Phyllis Tribble, who was the associate dean then, was sitting in my office with her Bible, watching it on the TV, and with her Bible open to Jeremiah, a text I had never heard. Death has climbed in through our windows. And she didn't come to chapel. She just sat with that text and watching to see, as a New Yorker, what was happening. But those two women carried that tradition of care of souls, literally, to in the best possible way. So thank you for mentioning